So how was like? I think you stayed at Drager's place for 6 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I can get into that by finishing off
No, sorry.
kind of the beginning of my martial path, which was during that age 9 to 22, that period of time, I had two big things happen. One, I had the opportunity to go to Japan and live there and train there for 9 months. And while I was there, I met Don Drager, made a connection with him. When I came back, so that was in 75, I maintained contact with him through letters, through aerograms, and he was in the process of going back and forth to the University of Hawaii, the East-West Center, to do several lectures on Japanese Budo, Bujitsu, martial culture, hoplology, because that's what he was in the process of redefining and developing, was the study of human combative behavior, or the study of warriors, their weapons, and their fighting systems, called hoplology.
Hoplology, yeah.
And so he had told me about this when I left Japan. He said, this is what we're doing. If you're interested in this kind of thing, stay in touch by letter and we'll keep you in the loop. And he did. And in 1979, I got an invitation from his senior student, Karuna Karan, in Malaysia. Who was Shindo Musoryu. He was in charge of all the Shindo Musoryu there when Drager wasn't there. And he invited me to attend the first international jodo jamboree. And they used the term jamboree because when Shimizu was coming across the country for his tour, they also made contact with several Boy Scouts groups. And the Boy Scouts have get-togethers called jamborees. So they decided, let's call it the first international jodo jamboree.
In which language jamboree is? In Malay?
No, English.
English jamboree. Okay. I thought it's Malay.
For us, when we hear jamboree, we kind of hear like it's a party.
Okay.
The Boy Scouts must use it like it's a group get together. So I prefer the first international Shindo Musoryu training camp. I prefer that. Yeah. Right? Sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds better, of course.
Yeah. So Karuna, which is the nickname that we called him, outlined all the different steps that have to take place in the letter. You got to do this, you got to do that. You have to fly this airline. You'll arrive at this airport. You need to go take this bus. Go to this hotel. All these things. So I wrote to him. I said, okay, I've made the decision. I'll do it. I'll follow the plan. And I wrote to Don Drager and I told him what I'm doing. And he wrote back and he's like, dear Mike, first of all, it's I who must thank you for making the sacrifice, because I know it will be a sacrifice for you. At that time, I was married. That one only lasted a couple of years, but I was married at that time. Oh. Yeah. Hello. Young and dumb, but that's okay.
It happens.
Anyway, he says, I know it'll be a sacrifice, but it will be worth it. The people that you will meet, the training that you will have will be unsurpassed and available to hardly anybody. So, I don't mean to mess up your plans, but if it works out for you and you want to fly the cheap way, like I do, come to Japan. You can stay with me for a few days, and then we will fly to Thailand, and from there we'll take the 25-hour train ride into Malaysia. Did I just get invited to travel with Dr. Eng?
Lucky guy.
Yeah, I did. And in my mind, I'm thinking, there must be a group. Yeah, that's it. There's got to be a group of 7 or 8 guys that will all get together and then we'll all go down. Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds good to me. And again, so these are that's a visualization that I have. The visualization I had when I got the invitation was, remember Enter the Dragon, the opening scene? We've got the big group, hey, oh, and you got all the lines. Well, I think that's what this is going to be. And I'll be at the end of the line, jumping up, looking, but I'm like, sign me up, I'm there. So that's the visualization. Okay, so turns out Don Drager picks me up at the airport. We go out, we have dinner. He kind of tells me what the plan is. He's got a few people to say goodbye in Tokyo. We'll bunk down at his place. It's a 2-room place. I don't know how many mats. I don't know, maybe
it was
10 mats.
In Tokyo, not Narita at that time. Tokyo, right?
Yeah, no, Narita.
Narita.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you the one who took that picture of him weapons? That famous picture. You're the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never get credit for that, but yeah, that's Mikey Mike. Yeah, the picture of Don Draeger in front of his wall of weapons.
I will show it later on the video in the editing. I will put it. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah. All right. So now it's over. Saw everything that there was to see, and we're at the airport, and I'm looking up at Don Draeger, and I start to say, I don't know what to say, and he just holds up his hand. He goes, "No words are necessary. Next time you'll come on the long trip with us." I didn't want to invite you on this one because I knew it would be too much for you, and you need to do this slowly. But next time, when you're ready, you'll come on the long one. And that's when I asked him, when I go back, since there's no Shindo Muso Ryu, what should I be doing? And that's when he said, you need a weapons-based system. So when I got back to LA, even before I went to Japan, I was aware of Dan Inosanto. I was aware that he was teaching in his backyard. And that he had also opened the Kali Academy where he was teaching Filipino martial arts. And the Jun Fan Bruce Lee system, but that was kind of on the down low, and you had to go through 3 different phases before you were invited to join that group and all that. And to tell you the truth, I really wasn't that motivated for that. I wanted to follow the advice of Don Draeger, and the Kali and the Filipino martial arts and the weapons fit right in with Filipino knife play. Now I get to see what's going on with that. So I went down, I saw the training. It was very, very impressive. I entered to the sound of drumming. It was conga drumming. Like, what am I walking into? Is this a dance class? And it had more of a vibe of a boxing gym. There were shirtless people in there. They were jump roping. They did a yoga kind of very dynamic warm-up. Focus gloves came out, punching, boxing drills, kickboxing drills, kicking shield comes out, kicking drills. Then they're doing some stick work for basic Filipino eskrima, which also can be called Kali or Arnis, 3 different names for really the same kind of thing. And then finally ending with Wing Chun type trapping and Chi Sao exercises. All right, so I talked with the teacher, Richard Bustillo, and he said, we have a waiting list, so I'll put you on the waiting list. He asked for my background. I told him jiu-jitsu. He wasn't that impressed, So let's put you on the list. Lots of people come. And so about a month later, I got the call, we're starting a new class. It's Friday night, 6 o'clock. If you want to come, be here early and, you can start. So that's how I started. And then after a while, that's phase 1, all the basics. After a while, at one point, Richard Bustillo couldn't make it to class, so Guru Dan Inosanto covered for him. Great, Dan Inosanto. Kind of like Don Draeger, had
Bruce
that type
Lee,
of form. very nice guy, extremely humble. And in one of the drills he had us do, there was somebody kneeling down, hunched over, and you have to run, jump, shoulder roll, and as you shoulder roll, pick up a stick and stand up. That's just one of the drills. No problem. This is right up my alley. We used to jump over 4 or 5 people, right? So Mikey Mike makes the jump, grab the stick, stand up, ta-da. And as I'm walking to the end of the line, Guru Inosanto says, that was an excellent roll. Thank you. What's your background? Oh, Dan Inosanto Jiu Jitsu. He's like, and I'm still starting to try to get to the end of the line. He's like, that was Okazaki's system from Hawaii.
Oh, he knows that, yeah.
And I'm like, yes, sir. And I'm impressed that he knows that. It's really not the most well-known style, right? And then he said, I'm like, yes. Okazaki's name was known to the old Filipino masters in Hawaii. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He was also known to be a good student of the Filipino arts. And I thought, wow, it's interesting just in a general history of Dan Inosanto, but there isn't any reason why anybody's going to tell me this unless they heard it from somebody in authority, in his Filipino martial art training
community. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never have been able to go back and say, by the way, who told you that? It literally wasn't until last week.
Last week.
that I got details on that. Okay, because so I trained at the Kali Academy from 1979 regularly until we're going to call it till 1992 or so. With some breaks here and there. And in 1985, I went to the Philippines and I did my own 3-month expedition to study the Filipino arts as best I can, doing it the way Don Draeger explained it to me. And that's a whole amazing experience. But when I came back, I had to get to work and pay off money and so there was kind of a break in training, but I got back into it and I followed Inosanto as he went from the Carson area to the Marina Del Rey School, to the Culver City School, and then back to the Marina Del Rey School. And he eventually invited me to teach a jiu-jitsu class on Friday nights there, which I thought was, wow, it's another milestone in the old martial arts experience. Dan Inosanto asking you to teach at his academy. But I did. And anyway, did that until I got to the point where I was invited to participate and start learning a full contact women's self-defense program where I was one of the muggers.
I saw you with a huge...
complete protective gear. Yeah. We looked like the combination between the Pillsbury Doughboy and RoboCop.
Yeah.
I prefer the RoboCop look, but it's the Pillsbury Doughboy too. But it's a football helmet with 2.5 inches of foam, football shoulder pads, super green protector, hip, shin, knee, thigh protection. And amazingly, we're pretty mobile. I can take falls. You can't really do much grappling down there, and there's no chokes. But it allows students to go full force and full speed, pokes to the eye, chops under the nose, chops to the throat, elbows to the head, knees to the groin, repeated knees to the groin, knees to the head, full power, and I can handle it. And the people that are trained in that gear can handle it. After a 4-hour session, I don't have any neck pain. I don't have any headaches. I don't wake up wondering what my name is. It's kind of like taking a fall. How do you have to take a fall? You have to be relaxed, right? If you take a fall tense, like anybody would take a fall,
You hurt yourself.
you're going to break, okay? But if you're relaxed, you can go with it. And that's the key to working with this gear. But anyway, so now I'm being exposed to this training. It's primarily women's self-defense taught by women, because it's more effective that way.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. The students relate to the woman teaching better than a dude teaching, you know? I'm having now the feeling and experience of, wow, my martial arts experience is making a difference to a group of people that, for sure, somebody in this class is going to get attacked at some moment in their life. For sure, 1 in 3 will experience some kind of sexual attack, harassment, trauma, something in their lifetime. Okay. And concurrently at the academy, you know, Guru Dan is on his own journey. You know, he not only Kali and Eskrima Arnis and Jeet Kune Do, but Muay Thai boxing. He brings in the experts, right? And he gets trained to instructor level. And now he's expecting his students to add that on, right? And then French Savate. So they come, you know, and we have experience training with the French Savate group. And I had a great time doing that with them. And I even got my silver glove, you know, it's kind of like the black belt, you know. But it's more and more. And then when he started Penchak Silat, you know, and you've got to do the salute for each one. He wants to pay respects to each art. And he's got the flags of all the countries up at the academy. And you got to do the salute to each art. Finally, I couldn't even make it through the salutes. And I'm like, I think I've had enough. Because you can't do it all, right? And so I've been very involved with the full contact realistic scenario training, also known, Meredith coined the term adrenal stress scenario training. I feel like that's a very effective, practical way for people to learn self-defense. Most people don't have the time or interest to spend years studying a traditional martial art. I do. I think it's great. It's awesome. But most people don't, you know. But can you learn some save your life CPR-like self-defense moves? Sure. Is it really that hard to learn poke him in the eye, chop him in the throat, knee to the groin? Really?
Effectiveness,
No, it's not hard. Mental, that's the hard part. And by doing this training, they're able to activate their fighting spirit. They don't have to worry about hurting the guys in the gear. They can go full force and full speed. And now it can become very rock and roll, very spontaneous, very quickly. In the space of 4 hours, they feel like, wow, I feel like I've been in a couple of different fights. Chaotic, but effective. All right, so at some point, I had to say, you know what? Thank you, Guru Dan.
That's too much.
Other things that are now calling to me. And he only wants you to go find what you want to do. It doesn't matter to him. You know, if Muay Thai is your thing, awesome. If Penchak Silat is your thing, great. You know, I go back to the academy every chance I get, and it's still an open door there. And I did train with him at a seminar, just like in the last 6 months, just to go back and do it again. So had that experience, but this is all getting back to that Filipino knife play thing. All right, 30 years later, there is a drill that we were introduced to in that old Inosanto Academy called numerado. also known as numerada. It's
in Tagalog.
Yeah, it's a stick and knife drill, and it's very circular, okay? And it's very cool to look at it. It's like, wow, that's so cool. It's kind of like, for those that do Shindo Musoryu, it's like Ranai. It's that type of, it's a very long form. It takes you through 1 through 12 different angles with stick and knife, and there's a prescribed way to deal with each one. Good. But I never felt like I got that. Because there's too much material being presented, and that's one of the problems with too many arts.
Yeah.
It's too much material, you know?
I have the same problem, yeah.
Right. So I also have been in touch with one of his, Dan Inosanto's first generation of students, a gentleman named Cass Magda. He's had his own school, the Magda Institute, for the last 30 years. I have been able to visit him several times during that time, but we haven't had any type of real ongoing relationship. But a friend of mine and I texted him and said, hey, we want to learn this drill. Could we do that? And he said, come by the school and we'll see what we can do. We were all prepared for a private lesson, but he said, just join the class Wednesday nights, 8 to 10. And this happens to be the drill that we do. We do the numerada or the numerado drill for half the class, and then we do traditional penchak silat. And he says, by traditional, I mean slowly. I said, ooh, you get my attention. You know, that's what I want. So over the last 4 months, that's where I've been going for Wednesday nights. Is now I'm plugged back in, and it's the way he has his school. It's reminiscent of the old Kali Academy that I first started in back in 1979. So it's literally like going back into time to train with this main guy that was one of our regular class instructors, to be in that same environment. The group that I'm training is just like 5 or 6 other guys, really good group. Just they totally welcome me in. And from that, I have been connected with another person, just by name, of Lantoya. And the Lantoya family was in Hawaii when Okazaki was training in Hawaii back in the day. And they know the name of the instructor. The name of the instructor was a man named Floro Villabrille. And we know that name coming up under Dan Inosanto because Floro Villabrille is a very prominent full contact stick fighter back in the day. You hear about all this stuff, okay? But Guru Cass sent me a picture of the ad that he found in a scanned version of the, whatever it was, the Oahu Sun Times. I don't know the name of the paper. But it was an ad for full contact stick fighting matches in 1934. And it showed Villabrille versus this guy and a bunch of other matches. And then there was 2 Japanese guys showing the Japanese style of fencing. Okay. So I mentioned that to a gentleman that I'm in weekly contact with regarding hoplology. His name's Mahipal Lunia. He runs something called the Immersion Foundation. And he also was very inspired by Don Draeger, and so contacted me. And I have been doing work with him for the last couple of years, transmitting a lot of information that I have to him. Anyway, he was in contact with the Lantoya family. And he's the one that told me, Mike, I know who Okazaki trained with back in the day. He trained with Villabrille. And Villabrille was one of the teachers of Dan Inosanto. So that's where Dan Inosanto probably got his information. Right? I'm like, you know, the martial arts history and details is like that. And it is a very small world, even though it's worldwide.
So you got the dots connected.
Yeah. So that's very interesting and amazing. Anyway, I'm going to pause here for a second. Do you have any comments?
Well, no, it makes sense now, the connection, because even the history of Koryu, it's all connected. For example, the Shindo Musoryu, my art and your art, came from basically Katori Shintoryu, so the origin, So, have you ever trained in BJJ, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu?
I have. One of the things that I was invited to do by being involved with this adrenal stress scenario training, my original training for that was through a group called Impact Personal Safety that focused primarily on women's self-defense and children's self-defense. But one of the people on the board of directors was part of LAPD. And so, there was the Rodney King terribleness and beating, right? And so federally mandated LAPD was required, I think it was the Christopher Commission, I think that was it, required that LAPD totally revamp their arrest and control procedures. And basically it was, since it doesn't seem to be working very well from inside the house, you need to go outside the house. And so there was a sergeant there in the training department, and he was doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but what he did is he organized about 20 different martial arts experts from all over LA County to come to have a meeting to explain the problem. They said, we have 5 different scenarios that seem to be happening regularly to our officers. We would like to get your input on how would your martial arts style deal with this problem? And then you have a month to go back, figure it out, come back, show us, we will videotape it. Then we will take all of those answers to our training department. They will look at it, try to decide, okay, is this legal? Can we do that? Is this okay? They will present their representation of what you showed, and then the rest of their ideas for revamping the program. And then you guys will tweak it, in terms of help us. How do we present the knowledge? How do we show efficient ways to do it? And this went on for several years. It was called the Civilian Martial Arts Advisory Panel to LAPD. And the end result was a 40-hour training period or training class that was taught Monday through Friday, 5 days for 8 hours a day. And they started with the existing officers, and then they made it mandatory for all the cadets. So as part of that, my calling there, I wasn't assigned this, but I said, you know what, Bob Koga was an original LAPD officer.
Koga is Japanese, right? Originally Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was a Tohei Aikido man. Okay, and my dad, who knows all and sees all, back in the early days when we were having judo competitions in our local Danzan group, was able, maybe he read about him in a newspaper, I don't know, but made contact with him and invited him to come to one of our tournaments and demonstrate police Aikido. And he did, and he took some of our brown belts and was showing how to throw them around and put them into locks and holds, and stand on one leg and hold the baton and have people try to push you over, and having his ki power not be able to be moved. And that was super impressive. So again, flash forward 40 years, I'm an adult now. I'm part of LAPD's Civilian Martial Arts Advisory Panel. I look at the back of Black Belt magazine and I see a little ad called Practical Aikido, and it's this white-haired old guy, and it says Bob Koga, the Koga Method. Well, that's the name of the book, and I have his 2 books, Weaponless Control and Baton Training, the Koga Method. So I sent away, as I wanted to see, is he up to date, or is he just, 1960s stuff, put in, 2000 years. So I got the volume 5, Practical Aikido, looked at it, like, wow, he's got really interesting stuff. You know, you're pinned on the ground. They're on top of you in a mount. He says you stick your middle knuckle in their ear, right? Wrap around and force your middle knuckle into their ear and buck them off. And that would hurt bad.
Yeah.
You know, that might work. So I contacted him. He said, you know, yes, you can come. You can come to one of our local trainings in Long Beach. It's a one-day seminar. I went and visited him and explained who I was and what I was doing with LAPD. He just kind of smiled and shook his head. He goes, you guys are revamping the whole arrest and control? Because he created a whole arrest and control program. I said, yeah. I said, he goes, you know that we already did that. I say, I know, Sensei. And he said, you know, the problem is that they just don't practice. That's the, you know, and cops are not known in general for, after getting off a shift, you know, hey, let's go to the dojo a couple of times a week, you know, maybe the bar, you know, or maybe but the dojo, not so much. But anyway, he said, yes, you know, it's good that you want to learn the history and yeah, you're welcome. So I started following him along and I have accumulated several of those one-day, 8-hour trainings. I went to a 5-day police self-defense training up in San Jose. I went to a baton instructor training that was in Stockton. And so I did 8 hours a day in Stockton for 5 days. Oh. And then at night, I went to different Eskrima dojos, Eskrima schools in Stockton, because that's a hotbed for... Busy man.
I can't do that.
Yeah, so all sticks all the time. And the police baton that is a major motherfucker is what that is.
Did they include the BJJ in their training or something?
No. No, that's a separate deal.
Yeah. Have you ever met Rickson Gracie?
I did. Well, there's a little bit of a story attached to that. First of all, when I was at UCLA, I would go to the judo club occasionally to do judo. And on one of those afternoons, there was a visitor. It was Horion Gracie.
Oh, the elder brother, right?
The elder brother. Yeah. And he worked out with all of us and submitted all of us.
All?
Yeah, everybody. You know, it wasn't a big class, but it was like, yeah, no big thing.
He made it.
There you go. And then as he was getting ready to leave, he wanted to know where the bus stop was. And I said, and this was back in like 1978, maybe?
1978?
Yeah. I said, well, the bus stop is over there. But where are you going? And he said, Torrance. Now, UCLA is in West Los Angeles, and Torrance, by car, is like 45 minutes away. By bus, you're probably looking at an hour and a half. Yeah. I said, I got a car. I can take you. So I drove Horion Gracie to his home, which is that's where they had the garage dojo.
The famous one, yeah.
So that's how I had my first meeting with him. Again, decades later, he's invited to come as part of this CMAP thing, right, with the LAPD. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get LAPD to buy the whole Gracie program. You know,
a business, you know.
No offense to the rest of you experts, but we've got a program, you know, so we can sell it and make money and all that. LAPD, even though the sergeant that was organizing it was a BJJ guy, he knew that he couldn't just do that. You know, he had to get everybody's input. Yeah. And so Gracie pretty much bowed out of that. But then we had one of the Machado brothers.
Machado, yeah.
Yeah, and they helped, and they weren't looking to try to sell just BJJ only. So they had input. But what I decided to do is the Gracie family developed a law enforcement training program. They called it the Grapple, Gracie against something, So I sent my application in and described who I was and my history, my card, my CMAP card, and sent that in and sent in my $900 because that's what it cost back then, and that was sometime in the early 2000s, if I remember correctly. And I got the okay to show up, and so I did. And everybody gathered around at the Gracie headquarters, the Gracie University, their big dojo, great dojo. They've got a great museum that they have all sorts of things you can check out. Great. And Horion happened to see me. Hey, Mike, how you doing? But after everybody was warming up, he said, hey, Mike, can I see you in the office? I said, sure. So he's like, Mike, I didn't know that you were on LAPD now. And I said, I'm not. Just, but if you're not an officer, then you can't be in this class because this is a training program to become an instructor of that group, of that system. Like, well, I put all my information down on my application. I gave you my CMAP card, and you took my money.
Yeah.
And nobody called me to go, what's up? Who are you? And he said, yeah, I wasn't involved in that. That's just the office. I was like, he said, I can't give you an instructor certificate if you pass. All I can give you is a certificate of attendance. I go, that's okay. All I'm interested in is the experience. I'm not interested in, I don't know how to say this, but yet another instructor certificate. I don't need another one of those. So that's how I got my first real introduction to Gracie Jiu Jitsu was at the Gracie Academy, training with, it was actually a lot of SWAT guys that were there. It was a lot of those guys. And at the end of the training, they asked for feedback. Horion asked for feedback, and I was talking to some of the SWAT guys from Las Vegas, and I said, "You guys gonna fill this feedback form out?" He goes, "Yeah, we fill out feedback on every training program that we go to because our lives are on the line."
Oh yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said to myself, "All right, well, I've got some feedback," and I did a typed thing, about 2 pages. It was good training, but it could have been way better. You're on the mat in bare feet and sweats. Okay, well, great, but not super practical. It should be at least in some kind of tennis shoe.
Yeah.
And your Sam Brown, some kind of training belt with all your gear on it, at least some representation of that. Right? Because it's no fun crawling around on your back with that type of thing digging into the cement.
Yeah.
If you have to do it, okay, but it's not like your preferred method. Oh, let's go to the ground.
Yeah.
Then
I want to add one point. Once it's according to what you said, just like Ellis Emler, once of his videos, because I think he was Arakiri is kind of combat with armor, what I understood. He said, like, with BJJs, of course, yes, but in real life, you fight on the ground maybe with people having weapons, having a knife. So with having a weapon, a knife, or maybe, I don't know, a sword or short, grappling on the ground has different rules than just grappling, just moving on, and the cement, as you said, yeah.
And if you just, at least in LA, if you just are observant to see how many people are carrying pocket knives, that they can pull out and go, the bad guys are going to have, that. It's just the rare one that wouldn't. So all of that has to be put into the whole analysis of the deal, but it's a very effective system.
Yeah.
There's no way to doubt that, because we've seen it on countless, not even I'm talking about in the ring, but countless situations where people are able to employ some of what they learned, whether it's a choke, a takedown, some sort of interesting hold, where it's effective, and because they're holding all the time and practicing it against people that are what we call no people, when we practice martial arts, we're practicing generally with yes people.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's use this technique.
That's Aikido problem.
Yeah. No, not like that, like this. I'm not saying you're attacking me wrong, but if you attack me this way, it'll be better and easier for you to learn. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then the police look at things. Somebody that just doesn't want you to touch them, that's a maybe person.
Oh, yeah.
They're not fighting you, but they just don't want you to touch them, right? So now you're dealing with some kind of resistance. Yeah. And sorry, unless you're doing judo or you're rolling BJJ or doing some kind of sparring where, somebody's actively trying to resist you, you are not getting that experience. And since we're talking about fighting, you are going to have that experience if you're fighting somebody. So you have to get introduced to it. You have to get used to it.
Like Mike Tyson, what he said when he said, everyone got a plan until he got punched on the face, right?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So anyway, in the feedback I gave them, shoes, Sam Brown, and more scenarios would be good. They only did one scenario, and the scenario was, okay, two of the students, their job is they are partners. They have to contact one of their instructors who's walking across the mat, and they know that this is a bad guy, and so they have to try to stop him, get him to produce ID, and probably arrest him. That's what they have to do. So the two guys are approaching, sir, excuse me, can we talk to you for a second? And the guy starts, moving around. And so the drill is one of them is assigned to taking his legs. The other one is assigned to taking the top part of his body. So that's what they do. Boom. Get the legs, take them down, control the legs. That's his only job, control the legs. Maybe cross them over to help him with a turnover. Able to do that, able to capture the arm, get the arm behind the back, and put on a very effective two-finger wrist lock, finger lock, super effective. And then we handcuff them, okay? And they just kind of pantomime it. Well, I took the Bob Koga searching and handcuffing 5-day class too, and just putting the handcuffs on is a little bit more complicated than that. So it would be good to practice that. You could take a couple minutes to try that. Yeah. Come on. So I said, my group does have a lot of training in these scenario type of drills, and if you are interested, I'd be happy to come down and work with you on them. I never got any response. I never got any type of thing.
Gracie, too proud.
I built this house. Yeah. Now, having said that, I do believe that their police training has advanced. I haven't seen it recently, but I do think that they have probably gone to those next levels where it's a little bit more realistic. On top of that, it turns out that Cass Magda, where I'm training now on Wednesday nights, he was also going to the Gracie Academy in his garage dojo way back in the early 80s. It's just another little...
Man, your life is all connected together. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And he said the same thing, it's all good, but not when they pull the knife out.
Yeah.
And, and you can't see it, it's a very terrible situation. Guru Dan Inosanto, I don't know if you know this, but he started training in BJJ at age 65.
65. Oh.
Yeah, and he trained with the Machado brothers and achieved his black belt.
Black belt.
Yeah, and he was so impressed with the system that every time he was in Los Angeles, because he travels all over the world, every time he was in Los Angeles, he would train 90 minutes BJJ. And he was super effective. Before, he thought it was super effective. Before he asked me to teach the jiu-jitsu program at the academy way back in the early 90s, he said, Mike, what do you think about this Gracie Jiu Jitsu stuff? And I said, well, Gudo, it just kind of looks like ugly jiu-jitsu to me. It just looks like kind of basic stuff. Headlock defense, pick the leg up from a bear hug, pick the leg up. Didn't look anything really special to me. But when you saw the first UFC, like, even though those matches were selected.
Really, were they really selected? Right? They did, yeah.
Were selected,
business,
Anyway, but the point is that after a while, you could see that, wow, if that guy's trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus that kickboxer guy, I think I'm going to have to go with that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. And Don Draeger said the same type of thing in terms of judo versus karate. He said judo versus karate. He says, I'll always go with the judo man.
Yeah, definitely.
They won't be able to weather the one strike, one kill, take the guy down and probably choke him out or put an armbar on him.
Yeah.
Just in general. He says the grappler beats the striker. Yeah. Just in general.
Hoplology, that's...
Yeah.
By the way, just to add information, because I kept watching UFC and I saw the movie Choke of Rickson Gracie. I saw the UFC. I think maybe everything is development. I see, for example, the Gracies were very good. Even Rickson was very good at that time but I don't think if he was still younger up to now he could make it that good or be so effective if he was fighting in the UFC right now, because the level of fighters is
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
This is two armchair football guys looking at the NFL going, I don't know, it's back to prime. Okay, well, maybe. But the point is, have you ever seen the match between Matt Hughes and Royce Gracie?
I think I saw it. I think, yeah.
Okay, check it out again. I thought, wow, this is going to be a great match. The all-American wrestler versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, grappler versus grappler. This is going to be super interesting. And in watching kind of the lead up for it, Matt was, I learned my lesson. Wrestling is not enough. I've learned boxing. I've learned kickboxing. I've learned the submissions of jiu-jitsu. And I have personal trainers in all these arts. I go from one gym to the next, just like Draeger and all those guys would do. They'd go from one dojo to the next. They would be doing multiple trainings. And so, saw that. And Royce Gracie, his explanation was, I train in BJJ every day. And we built this house. You're coming into my house. I have nothing else to say. Okay. So the night of the fight comes, you're looking at both, and sometimes people are communicating just through their body language. And to me, his body language looked, like he wasn't really there.
Who the Royce?
Royce wasn't really there, like a little vacant.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like to me. And Matt was, he's warming up and he's ready to go. If you didn't know that Royce Gracie had done what he had done in UFC 1 and UFC, whatever it was, 2 or 3 or whatever, and all the other matches that he has done in Japan, through the other programs, Pride or whatever, if you didn't know that experience, you couldn't tell that he had any training at all. My opinion. Matt Hughes was able to take him down more than once. He was able to put on an arm bar. Hoist didn't tap. Everybody thought that his arm was broken. It wasn't. Got him on his stomach, mounted his back, and just rained down punches.
Grappling is a very effective,
To the point where, like, okay, it's over. You know? And at that point, it was like, okay, it's obvious that one art is not enough. You know, that's why the mixed martial arts came about. Right. You know, we've got like 5 techniques from each art, and we practice the hell out of them, and we've integrated them, and we've got cardio that'll last for 5 rounds, 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
You know, so that's it.
That's hoplology.
And that still doesn't stop the MMA champion in Brazil from getting shot because he pissed off some guy and got shot in a bar.
Shot? God, I didn't know that. The Vale Tudo's a guy or something?
He may have been a Vale Tudo guy, but he was called an MMA champion. And I don't remember who it was, but he got killed.
Yeah. Brazil is, safety in Brazil is a big issue, you know. Let's go back to cardio. Let's go back to...
One other thing with the whole Gracie Jiu Jitsu thing, because it is such a pervasive force now, it's worldwide. They affected at least modern martial arts. You know, they affected it. If you're going to do realistic training, you've got to do some kind of grappling. And that type of grappling is great. I don't know whose father is the father of Henner Gracie, but Henner Gracie and his wife, can't remember her name right now, but they're like the grandkids, you know, have grown up in the art, and they have an awesome way of sharing their art. They break down video that is sent to them from all over the world about.
I saw.
His energy is awesome. She is great. They've got a women's self-defense.
And very beautiful.
Very beautiful. And can kick your ass. So,
for sure.
But they are so great in terms of the positive energy they put out. I really want to contact them. I want to invite them to come up to the Shoseon Tea House and do something. I'm not sure what we would do. Maybe teach a class. I don't know. But I am so impressed with their personalities and the way
positive.
And they work with kids that are bullied, you know, and they offer free training. You know, come to the academy. We give you a week's free training. They really can affect people's lives, and that's huge. That is huge.
It's huge.
I'm very impressed by that and by them.
It's very impressive. I agree with that.